Hey everyone, and welcome to the last webinar before the summer break. Today, instead of my co-founder 𝗪𝗵𝘁, I'm co-hosting it with 𝗪𝗵𝘁, co-founder of 𝗪𝗵𝘁 ABM. By the way, Mason, you need to click on Go on Stage to the green button to join me. And as announced, we're going to talk today about marketing and sales alignment. So we had a couple of chats with Mason about what's going on in B2B marketing space, and obviously spoke about the state of ABM and what makes ABM program successful, and also what's the #1 reason of failure. And what we have defined, obviously analyzing our conversations with prospects, and Mason shared the same opinion, is that lots of teams, they define the current status of marketing and sales alignment as aligned on papers, but actually not doing anything in practice. And hence, this is the topic for our today's webinar, misaligned despite our best intention. To address a few questions that I know you guys are going to ask us definitely. First, yes, the recording will be available. You can use the same login link. Basically, the recording will be here on this platform, and you can either rewatch it later or you can share it with your team. And then the second question, you're more than welcome to ask questions. On the right sidebar, you should have a tab called Q&A. So feel free to post your questions there, and we'll make sure to cover all of them. And that being said, let's kick off. Mason, thanks a lot for joining me and co-hosting this webinar with me today.
Absolutely. Super stoked to be here. And Andre, just really appreciate the opportunity. So I want to go ahead and dig right into it and ask the question of just why are we misaligned with sales? Go ahead and type in the chat some of the things why you are seeing some misalignment with your sales team. One of the things I want to go ahead and call out is when we often hear people talk about misalignment, there tend to be one of two extremes that come out. So one is sales is stupid and evil and we hate them. And then the other extreme is marketing lives in a fantasy land where it's all brand and we never actually have a revenue implication. And those are often the extremes that I see. Our goal today is to recognize that those are correct. There is a balanced approach on why we actually see a lot of misalignment between marketing and sales. So hopefully, as you're dropping some things in the chat, you may end up just seeing, like, we're going to directly work through why. So I wanted to go ahead and start to see that conversation so that we can all be on the same page around functionally what we often see. The next thing is I want to flip the perspective and walk through what sales typically is actually looking for. I want to talk through how we can balance brand building and sales activation. We want to talk about how to operationalize your partnership. And the last thing that I always want to dig back into is specifically sales compensation. So that said, here's how you get the most out of the session. For starters, we're going to, here in just a moment, actually walk through the data-backed reasons on why we're misaligned. So again, as you're dropping things in the chat on why you currently think you're misaligned, there may be one problem that as we talk through the data, you're like, oh, that super resonates with me. I do not think out of this session it is reasonable to think that you can solve every problem in the next 30 days. What I would highly recommend is you write down the one problem that is the biggest hurdle for your success and then take specific notes on that. The second thing is you are here and we're super thankful you're here. I can also guarantee that there are team members that are not here. And we do want to have time at the end for some questions. So go ahead and write a message to your team that just says, hey, I'm in a session right now. Would love to go ahead and also get questions from your team so we can answer everyone's questions. And the last thing is set a time block on your calendar for next week, or if you're out of office next week, the week after, to go ahead and plan some things to actually go and do. I say this every time I get the opportunity to speak. Information without implementation is useless. So we really want the session to be useful for you. So if you actually listen to this whole thing and you change nothing, it would have been better if you had not been here. So make this worth your time and do something with the information. So that said, hi, I'm Mason, by the way. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the founder of 𝗪𝗵𝘁 ABM. Personally, in the past 3 years, have sourced about $25 million in revenue. Typically for boutique and bootstrap businesses, our organization has sourced about 100 million for a lot of vertical SaaS companies. And then we try to build repeatable programs, teach you how to own them and pass them back to you so you can run this in-house. So that's what we do. Andre, you've got a really headshot.
I have the best one. It's probably an AI prototype of my, let's say, face and வ்ладимир's face merged together, half. But jokes aside, I mean, I don't know what has happened with the headshot when the slides were uploaded here. But hi, I'm Andre. I'm co-founder of FullFunnel.io. We are a full funnel B2B marketing consultant company for B2B tech companies with long sales cycles and high ACV products. And I have spent so far 18 years in B2B marketing, or more precisely in enterprise B2B marketing and sales. So we have lots of things to share today with you guys. And by the way, quick question, where are you all joining us from? Type in the chat. I'm broadcasting from super hot Spain.
Yeah, I'm jealous that you're in Spain. I'm in Indianapolis. Which if you follow U.S. sports, my entire city is depressed because we lost the NBA Finals, I think Monday night. So anyway, I don't follow much on the sports front, but everyone that I talk to is really sad right now. Anyway, speaking of sadness, one of the things that makes marketing and sales teams incredibly sad, see that seamless transition, is the lack of alignment between marketing and sales. And that's why we actually titled this Despite Best Intentions. And when we've looked at the data, it typically comes down to one of three core reasons why ABM programs and why typically marketing and sales teams are misaligned. So the first is miscommunication. I always love to do this exercise whenever we start to talk to new clients, is just ask really basic questions like, so what is a lead? What is an MQL? What is an SQL? And we actually have a separate meeting with marketing and a separate meeting with sales, and we ask the same questions and see how their definitions are different. So as a result, we actually say the same words, but mean different things. And functionally, we're speaking a different language. So that's challenge number one. It's really hard to communicate and get on the same page if you don't all mean the same things. Second thing is just different goals. So we've had plenty of clients that had marketing goals that weren't made in tandem with sales goals. So marketing celebrates while sales didn't hit their pipeline goals. Really tough. And then the last thing is compensation. We'll talk about this a lot more, but the same sentence that I hear often from marketers when they go to build an ABM program is to get sales bought in. They're like, we're going to make our sellers way more money. Challenge is they don't actually know their sales team is compensated. So we've actually seen situations in which the ABM program made sellers less money based on the compensation structure was set up. So again, these are three reasons on why these things are misaligned. So we're going to dig a lot into that today. So that said, Andre, I know you've got some really super helpful illustrative slides for what typically happens.
Yeah, absolutely. If I would summarize everything that you have just said with one word, I would call it silos. This is the most common and the root problem of all challenges, not only ABM related, right? So how typically marketing and sales alignment happens in the organizations, right? Obviously, account-based marketing, as we all know that this is a joint initiative, right? But typically it's initiated by the marketing team, right? What happens next could be described pretty much well by the scene from the Godfather movie, right? When a fellow sales rep or head of sales, talks to the senior leader saying, hey, marketing said they want to work with us and run ABM. Fine, let's do it. So what happens next is just sales through a list of trim accounts that are not qualified. There is no buying intent, there is no vendor awareness, there is no indication that these accounts are in the market. They are only nice to have logos or kind of trim, in a bad sense of these trim accounts, or which we call wish list thinking here, right? So the accounts that would be nice to sell to, but it's extremely hard, right? These accounts don't know you, you have no relationship, and they have no reason to buy from you now. So what happens next? Next, marketing is supposed to create a classic ABM playbook, right? They receive this wish list from sales. Typically, it's a big list with hundreds of accounts most of them, especially if we're talking about going up market or enterprise pipeline generation, this would be Fortune 500 companies. And obviously, with limited resources, nobody would reveal marketing from other responsibilities and duties, right? So marketing should put it now on their full plate. And what happens next, right? Obviously, you have no capacity, no resources to run personalized ABM, or what we call one-to-one, or even one-to-few ABM. All you can do in this case is just purchase ABM software, or in the worst case scenario, just upload this list of accounts to LinkedIn, run programmatic ads or LinkedIn targeting ads, right? And then basically when engagement happens, sharing these engaged accounts with sales, and sales, obviously, they don't have time to do anything meaningful in terms of account planning, right, or buying committee engagement. All they can do is just setting up automated outbound cadences and just spam them all, right, and expect that basically, if I will summarize this typical classic ABM playbook, it's just pray and pray, right? It's not really different from the lead generation. You can still call it account-based because you have the list of accounts, right? The problem is that it's far from what real account-based marketing looks like. And the second problem with this playbook, right, that marketers, they're still supposed to hit their targets with MQLs, right? So just to justify the investment in ABM, they continue running gated PDFs, etc., right? Trying to kind of generate now MQLs from the accounts that sales gave to marketing and share. Okay, guys, now it's your job to close them. But as I have seen in the chat, you guys said, some of you said that sales usually deprioritize marketing leads and never do any meaningful engagement with them. And this is the real problem, right? Everybody expects, we call it ABM, but in nutshell, we know, basically all know that it is not ABM, it's just a targeted lead gen, and we just hope or pray that it will work. But in reality, we never saw it working, to be honest. So most of the companies that we spoke to that tried this type of ABM always failed these programs. And I added just screenshots of some business cases that we were co-creating with marketing teams of our clients, where you can explicitly see that how these playbooks actually end up. So if the question, if still the question you might have why this playbook is not working, there are a couple of things. First of all, the silos is still there. I mentioned in the beginning, right, that the silos is the root problem and the root issue for all ABM programs that failed. Next, sales, they don't understand their role and they expect that marketing will do all the work and they would just, put the last cherry on the cake, just showing up on the discovery calls, or better on just proceeding with the sales opportunities that were qualified by somebody and engaged by somebody. Next, there are obviously no clear playbooks on how to engage the buying committee. Everything should be automated. Everything should be scaled by default. And there are a couple of other things. Account-based marketing means personalization, right? But personalization goes way beyond, liquid dynamic text that you put in your ads or in cold emails that you are sending. Personalization is understanding or having, I would maybe rephrase it, having in-depth understanding of account needs, account initiatives, then looking into the buying committee groups, understanding the initiatives and the role of this buying committee group in these key initiatives, understanding the associated challenges, understanding the alternatives they might be considering, understanding the current status quo, because this is quite, or maybe even the most common reason why enterprise pipeline fails, because of lack of opportunity to challenge the internal status quo, right? And lastly, understanding the needs of every buyer persona, right? That's the key. And if you don't have this information, you will never be able to run a successful ABM program. So let's move forward to the, I know you just summarized it with the root problem, so let's move forward and then present the solutions.
Yeah,
I think that's, this one.
Yeah, so it's if you're already still with us, we've spent 15 minutes telling you all the reasons it fails. I promise now we're going to get into all the reasons that you can make it successful. So in short, again, we say the same words, but we mean different things. So I have yet to find a marketing and sales team that have actually met in the same room, and then everyone didn't all say, yes, we want more revenue, we want our target accounts. We like everyone says the right things, but what we've often seen is everyone has a different picture in their mind when we outline what that functionally looks like. And you, as a marketer, went to sales and said, "This is what I'm going to go build." And they said, "That sounds great." And you actually go build the thing, and you come back and present what you built, and sales like, "This is terrible." And as a result, like everyone's just kind of confused. They feel misunderstood and they're frustrated. So one of the biggest things that we started to do in the past 2 years is when we have this conversation, we have to align really past just the words, the conversation. We actually work in specific tools that are visualization tools that are like actually shockingly inexpensive, but they allow you to live build. So Andre's already had some visuals that allow people to see, oh, this is what's going to happen. We've got more visuals to show you. But when you take the conversation and you visualize it, yes, it's helpful. The visuals are nice. They're easy to engage with. But the reason they work is people all learn and understand concepts in different ways. So there are some people that are auditory learners. So as you're just listening on this, you might be working on something else. You're grasping the information. Some people need to read it. Some people need to see a visual. So when you create these things in different assets in different ways, it allows you to have the most accessible approach for actually educating and aligning with sales. That's, I think, the key takeaway is if you're going to actually align with sales, yes, talk through it, work through it, define your terms, make sure you're actually saying the same things, and then visualize it before you go build it and then end up coming back doing exactly what you said you were going to do that everyone agreed to, and then it's not what you end up looking for. So that's the high level. I think we just covered off on miscommunication. Now we want to dig directly into goals. So go ahead and drop in the chat when you think about the goals for sales. Like, what are sales goals? This is not a trick question. It's actually shockingly simple. So go ahead and drop in the chat. What are the goals? Yes, we've got revenue. We've got, thank you for the thumbs up. What else do we have? Revenue. It's the big one. Pipeline. Conversions. Yeah, all right. All right, we're getting it. So in short, I'm going to make it really simple. It's meetings, it's qualified ops that move, it's opportunities that close. It's about it. I presented this to many sellers and they all applaud. And they're like, that's all we need. That's all we're looking for. And the other question I always like to ask is like, well, what's the time horizon for sales? Like, how long do we have to get those meetings and those opportunities? Yes, someone already put now. What else is this? Yeah, this is true. Quarter or months. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and outline it. It's days, weeks, and quarters. So as an example, actually literally right before this webinar, I hopped on our daily stand-up with my salesperson and I said, what meetings do we have today? And like, what support do you need to push those meetings forward? We have a pipeline review every single week where I say, how do we move each of these deals to the next stage this week? And then we're always looking at the quarterly goal. Some months will be a little bit lighter, some months will be a little heavier. But as we think about getting these meetings, these opportunities that move, these opportunities that close, the best salespeople that I know maybe think 1 year at a time, but often it's how do I close this quarter? So that's the time horizon, which then begs the question, if we're talking about aligning with marketing and sales, we just think slightly differently. So I want to show you, you can see the blue color. That blue is all of the sales meetings and all of the time spent building proposals. So this is a calendar from like last week. I don't know that we got cut off, but like last week, when I took this screenshot, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago at this point, but I took the screenshot and this was my calendar. So super packed. Like as a salesperson, this is like the dream calendar. But then I actually took a screenshot 2 weeks out from when I took these screenshots, and I had one meeting on the calendar for 45 minutes. So when we talk about building a program that's going to deliver pipeline 2 quarters from now, sales thinks that's great, but like, I don't have meetings this week. So when we think about the priorities and the time horizons, sales just generally thinks differently. So that begs the next question, which is, well, what's the time horizon for marketing? So go ahead and drop in the chat like the time horizon typically for marketing. Yeah, 60 days is a good answer. So we've got 60 days, we've got 1 quarter, we've got quarters, weeks, months, years. I think that's great. What I've generally found is it's typically months, quarters, and years. Only if budget's approved. So sad. When I have been, so again, I've been both marketing and sales for the past 5 years and kind of bounced between the 2 roles. Often the most urgent request that I get as a marketer is end of week. Sometimes there's the occasional like end of day thing, but it's mostly like, hey, can we get this by the end of the week? Whereas for sales, it's typically like end of hour. It's like 11:55, and it's like, hey, I need this by noon. It's like awesome. So we think about the time horizon, things are just compressed. So it creates different pressures that sometimes I have found, especially when I show the calendar. That's been one of the most helpful things for a lot of marketers, because when a marketer looks at their week and they see an empty calendar, they're like, yes, I get the time to actually create and like build things. When a seller sees an empty calendar, they're like, got it, I'm not going to be able to feed my family. And like, same calendar, different roles, radically different perspectives on the outcomes. But that also begs the question, what is marketing doing? Like, what all is marketing doing? This is your time, marketers. Go ahead and drop in the chat all the things you're doing. If you think it's everything, you're going to love the next slide. So go ahead and drop in the chat, like, what all are you guys actually working on right now? What are you all doing? Aligning with sales. Love it. Working middle funnel increase. So you're the global head of marketing. So you're focused on like everything around the globe. We've got demand gen, brand, customer advocacy. Yeah, it's like a lot of stuff. You're doing like all of these things. So like you're working on social and email and events and search and paid and podcasting and webinars and influencer programs. You're also like focused on the brands. Like we want good vibes. We're like all this background is just like vibes. Like I don't know what the revenue implication is of this, but like I know that because I have a real like neon sign and I have like nice lights that like it puts a vibe out. That's a good vibe. We're doing SEO. We're trying to make downloadables. We're trying to do sales enablement. We're like focused on everything, it feels like, which is super reasonable. And as you look at these things, like what do these actually contribute to sales goals? When I ask marketers, I'm carrying the whole organization. When I ask marketers are like, well, all of this. Like if I didn't do my job, like sales would be like super without pipeline. Like I know that this like massive brand play is going to pay off 3 quarters from now. So when we talk about alignment, like we view all of these things in such high regard for contributing to sales goals. But if you ask sales, what contributes to sales goals? It's like, well, maybe email, maybe our events if we like did a good pre-event thing, maybe paid search if it converts instantaneously, maybe paid social, maybe webinars if they're a product demo. If we just like did a demo every webinar, that would contribute to sales goals. For sure, our referral program, that one gets me meetings. For sure, the sales enablement that accelerates my pipeline. For sure, you writing my outbound sequences for me and loading them into our outreach software so I can just press go. And then for sure, managing the website with good content that answers all of my prospects' questions and makes it easy for me to get inbound meetings. Like those 4, love those. These other 5, they might work, and everything else I don't really care about. Because their perspective and their time frame is days, weeks, quarters. So when we talk about programs that deliver in 26 or 27, it doesn't register because they don't care. And I want to be super clear here because some of you may hate me for that. And I do think that marketing should think long-term, 100%. Challenge that I think some marketers sometimes miss is that the long-term doesn't actually get here if we don't have pipeline today, we don't have meetings today. So when we talk about building these really long-term programs, they're great. I love them. I'm a big fan. If we don't deliver now, like, we don't get there. And from my experience, I have done very large brand plays. Like, Andre, you guys do the Full Funnel Summit. When I worked in a past agency, I actually did a day-long conference similar to Full Funnel that was called ABM-a-thon, and put it together in like 6 weeks. Got 700 people registered. It was great for us as like a year one type experiment, and had zero revenue implications. It was entirely a brand play because the pipeline was full, and we had other things that were already delivering pipeline. So like, you can do cool stuff, but you have to have a full pipeline. And this is my perspective. And again, some of you will hate me. I promise I'm on your team. We have to acknowledge that the lack of alignment is marketing's fault. If you came here hoping that I was going to say, here are all the reasons to get sales bought in and loving your programs, I don't have that answer for you, because I cannot change someone else's mind. What I can do is acknowledge the things that I can own in the situation and change those things. Because when something is our fault, that actually means it's within our control to fix it. So I'm going to go ahead and peel back the curtain for a moment. It actually doesn't matter if it's your fault or not, because who you point to has the control. So if it's all sales fault, that means you have no ability to fix anything, and you're screwed, and you can't do your job, and you should probably quit, because if you can't figure it out, you're probably going to get fired anyway. So like, if that's the alternative, I'd rather accept fault and fix it, you know? So that's my perspective on it. And it's been a massively beneficial perspective, because it's shifted the game into a very practical framing through which we actually solve the issues. So I also want to give you some data. This is one of my favorite pieces of data that outlines the actual appropriate balance of brand building versus sales activation. So go look it up for yourself. It comes from the book The Long and Short of It, which was written by Peter Fields and 𝗪𝗏. It outlines the appropriate budget allocation for brand building versus sales activation is actually 60% towards brand building, 40% towards sales activation. And again, as I talk to lots of marketers, they're either like fully focused on like, how do we generate pipeline this quarter, or they're typically focused like 2 years out. And it's a blend, it's a balance. You need both. And as we then think about using this data and saying, hey, we can generate some pipeline, but it's like super volatile. Like, the red line, for those of you that can't see it super clearly, is the activation piece. And the other thing, if you go look at the data, it literally says short-term effects dominate in a 6-month time frame. Like, the actual language from researchers that did this research was dominates. So if you need pipeline, activation quite literally dominates on a 6-month time horizon. But if you don't build the brand, you only live in pipeline volatility, and you're only as good as your last sale. So that's typically where marketers focus. We don't focus on the, well, how do we make it through the next 6 months? So that said, I'm going to actually give you a script. If you want to drive alignment, here are the kind of main characteristics, or the main points you want to hit on. So like, 1, we will build pipeline today. If you go to sales and you say we're going to build pipeline today, and not say we're going to build this program that will generate pipeline 6 months from now, but you say we're going to do things right now that will actually get pipeline moving, typically people perk up a little bit. Once you build pipeline, that gets you breathing room to build the brand. Because once you have pipeline and repeatable pipeline programs, you can then go build brand, because you actually have breathing room to do so. The other thing I want to outline is you need to communicate timelines and consequences. There is no perfect solution. This will have some repercussions, but so will the alternative. So just outlining, these are the timelines, these are the consequences. Don't throw blame, specifically accept fault. So it's been really helpful. If you are ever in a conflict, go into the conflict first by saying, hey, these are the things that I know I can own. What it does is actually like largely diffuses any conflict. If you just own everything that you can own, then they don't really have anything to throw at you, because you just like called it out up front. So it really helps to diffuse conflict. And the last thing is just categorize problems versus opportunities. The biggest reason I outline this is, as a quick example, let's say you have an overall 30% close rate. Actually, I'll make it 15. That'll be easier because that's more realistic. You've got a 15% close rate. And as you look at the stages from one stage to the next, you see a significant drop off after call 2. So it's like 90% move to call 2, 30% move from call 2 to call 3, and then 80% move to call 3. The problem is clearly whatever we're doing in call 2. Like call 2 needs to be fixed. Whereas if we say we need to go get more pipeline, what if we opened up a new channel and invested $300,000 in events? If you've never done events is an unproven channel. That's an opportunity. Opportunities could propel the business forward. But if we solve the problem of call 2, that will definitely grow the business. So outlining those two things and categorizing them allows you to have a more intelligent conversation on what to align with from a sales perspective. So here's the exact script for how to have this conversation as a marketer. Lots of words. People have already asked, will we send the slides out? We absolutely will. DM Andre or myself, and we'll get you the slides. But if you're a marketer, go to sales or executive leadership and say this. I know we need pipeline right now. Marketing has been focused on primarily brand building. We can do things that will build pipeline right now. PS will give you the list of examples of things that you can go build literally right now using your current CRM data. Like it's actually shockingly simple. Here is my hesitation. We will damage our brand. We will weaken our audience trust, and we could actually be super successful in the short term, but that short-term success will create pipeline volatility and then create unrealistic goals. What we're trying to prevent by communicating this is we actually shoot our shot and we hit the quarterly goal and give ourselves the breathing room, and the next quarter's goal is raised. And I was like, well, I can't. Like, I shot our shot. This is what we had. That was short-term results focused. And if we just continuously raise the goal every quarter, we never actually get the breathing room to truly build the brand that will deliver for years and years to come. So if we're all aligned that we're going to do some short-term programs to build pipeline, here's what I'd recommend. The next 6 to 9 months will have pipeline volatility. But if we can actually build the pipeline, we can then transition to a more balanced approach. And that's needed because long-term, brand building is crucial for sustainable growth, easier pipeline generation, pipeline acceleration, and close rates. So we then move into, here's what I need. This is your ask. I need a consistent pipeline goal for the next 18 months. With a consistent goal, we can dedicate 60 to 70% of marketing's time and budget directly to building repeatable sales activation playbooks in the next 6 months. These playbooks should be always on programmatic playbooks that should then prioritize outreach for sales. I want to be super clear. What I'm outlining is not necessarily ABM fully. This is what we do as like a transitionary period to help align marketing and sales, because ABM will totally fail if you have no sales buy-in. And Ahmed, when you ask, what do I mean by brand building? It's a great question. I'll give you an example. Right here, right now, Andre and I, we've got some slides at the end. I'll go ahead and outline that are like, hey, if you need help, like we can help you. But most of this right now is actually brand building. Like you're not going to get a bunch of DMs from SDRs afterwards that are like, hey, you should buy our stuff. Like we want to help you build the brand for both of us. And then we trust that over time, if we have educated you long enough that when you actually need help building an ABM program, you'll probably call one of us. Like that's brand building. Versus sales activation, which we'll walk through a bunch of examples, is like direct outbound, 2 booked meetings, 2 closed deals. That's how I think about the difference. Andre, do you have any perspective on like activation versus brand building?
I think you pretty much nailed it down, but the key point is that brand is, I would maybe give, if I will try to connect both worlds, activation and brand, right? Brand is being considered as a strategic solution or a priority solution to the challenge that you experience right now, right? So typically, whenever you experience any challenge, the first vendor that comes to your mind was actually able to build a brand, right? That's the key. So from the activation perspective, it also means that when there is a brand actually sells, we'll see high reply rates, better engagement with the buying committee group, and hence more pipeline and close won deals, as simple as that.
Yeah, I love it. So that said, once we've actually gotten some activation playbooks running, we're then going to rebalance marketing's budget to focus 60% on brand building. So essentially that's, to Andre's point, being top of mind, being helpful, guiding your audience for sometimes quarters or years at a time. And 40% will be focused on brand sales activation. Another way of thinking about this is like demand generation versus demand capture. Demand capture is like, how do we get people to book meetings now? Demand generation is how do we build demand for our services over time? Through this transition, sales can then actually start to own and maintain and optimize their playbooks. And then the goal of marketing is to build educational programs that shift perspectives, frame the problems, and position the brand as the solution. So when I think about brand strategy, it is typically that. Like, how do we actually create thought leadership and educational programs and help people actually think through their problems differently? I'm going to give a lot of kudos to Full Funnel. You guys do a great job of building your brand. So like when you do the Full Funnel Summit, and how many people did you have register, Andre, for Full Funnel Summit this year?
If you ask me, it was my ballpark, 3,500.
So 3,500, yeah, 3,500 people registered for Full Funnel Summit. Andre, I don't think you had the goal of converting all 3,500 people, but what you did have the goal of is you wanted to be viewed as a thought leader in the space that knows ABM program and ABM strategy incredibly well. And as a result, you got a bunch of other experts together, and that just association built your brand. So, Amanda, that's a great question as well. I'll actually walk through here in just a moment where to make the transition. But in short, we want to do this in such a way that we get repeatable playbooks running so that we can make that shift. And then inevitably, sales only reaching out to warmer and warmer audiences, as Andre already alluded to, which is we came top of mind. They probably came to us. They actually go ahead and loop in all the right decision makers on that first call. And then it moves a lot faster versus when it's a cold audience, they typically gatekeep because there's not trust yet built. So at a high level, this is the scripting, and what we're looking for is how to actually align sales. So, Andre, you have got some great thoughts on specifically how to even identify the right audiences to focus on.
Thank you. So, quick note, guys, if you don't mind, I saw a lot of questions about brand, but this session is about different topics, so we can talk with Mason about brand for many hours, but otherwise we won't be able to finish what we have planned for today. So if you don't mind, if you have these questions, feel free just to DM us on LinkedIn or email us, whatever you prefer, but we'll stick to the collateral. And also feel free to post your questions in Q&A so we won't lose them in the chat. Up to this point, probably if you agreed with us, you might be thinking, it all makes sense, but where and how should we start then? Right? So a few steps for you how we typically solve this challenge with our clients. The first thing that you need to do is you need to find your allies inside your company to form a change management team. You want it or not, you need to initiate the change management. You work in silos, you have all of these problems, you are misaligned, right? Could be your fault, as Mason said, could be whatever. It could be an organizational problem. There could be multiple reasons, but it doesn't change the fact that you need to initiate the change, right? How can you do it? You can't come to sales and to your leadership and say, hey, from today, we're all misaligned, we work in silos, and we're going to change it from today, so we're going to do this and that. It never works like this because you'll, first of all, no change should be a revolution for your team. Nobody likes revolutions, right? That's the first thing. The second one, most people would be resistant to it. They are not willing to change. And obviously, like we spoke about different KPIs, the first thing that sales would ask you, okay, guys, but how it's going to help me to hit my revenue and pipeline targets, right? So if you can't present meaningful forecast, and honestly, if you have never done ABM and you don't have benchmark, you will never be able to present accurate forecast. It would be just an assumption out of thin air. So never do it. Instead, what you need to do is to find people who are willing to change this the existing status quo, right? To challenge it. So this could be a sales rep who understands that the current process is not efficient enough, because if it's efficient, there is no way that you can change it, right? And then it would be a sales-led organization. They would be hitting their targets, and that's it. But then probably you won't be sitting on this webinar, I guess. So you need to find somebody who is not satisfied with the approach, who understands that the things should be done differently, right? And then you need to find a subject matter expert, a person who deeply understands your primary buyer persona, right? So this would be the people with whom you need to talk about your current approach, your go-to-market challenges, right? What's inefficient, why, what are the root reasons? That should be a frank conversation, right? Not just pretending that we're talking about high-level stuff, but it should be practical discussion, and then defining these challenges and identifying solutions, how that could be changed. So if if you don't have this practice and you don't have framework for this, one of the easiest things would be auditing your go-to-market strategy through full funnel lenses. I'm not referring to our company. I mean that you look holistically at all stages of the buyer journey, from awareness, how these buyers become aware of vendors or products like yours, till the expansion, right? Because a lot of companies, they think only in terms of awareness till acquisition, or most common just acquisition, right? And then what happens next? Nobody pays attention to client success and expansion. But the simple truth is, if you want to build a long-term strategy, which Mason mentioned a couple of times, right? You need to think holistically about extension of the relationship, which means when you sell, especially if you sell to enterprise accounts, when you marked your deal as closed won, the real relationship just starts. And from this point, you need to deliver. And the faster you'll deliver, the more opportunities you'll have for upsell or cross-sell to this account, right? So you'll be able to grow your wallet of share, which means that ABM, as you already guessed, it's a cross-functional collaboration, right? Where you need to involve a couple of people or a couple of roles. So we have once created with Vlad, my co-founder, document with 20 questions that you can use to audit your go-to-market strategy. So if you want, you can see the screenshot on this slide. And if you need slides, feel free to DM me, or if you want just to have this document, again, feel free to email or send me a message on LinkedIn. I will send it to you. And then just go through these questions. Maybe you don't need to answer all 20 questions, right? But just feel free to select those ones that are most important, or those ones that resonate with your current go-to-market challenges, and define areas you need to improve, right? Because the change management starts from accepting the problem, right? This is the first thing that you need to present to your stakeholders. And the second question that you might be receiving from your stakeholders and sales leadership as well, okay, but why changing right now, right? So you need to present the cost of inaction. So what happens if you are not going to do anything? That's why when you do this analysis, you don't only need answers to these questions. For example, we don't have enough replies to our outbound, or our cost of acquisition is growing. This won't be helpful without data. So the next thing that you need to do is you need to back it by data, and also look at where, if you are going to change, where you are likely to have success. The first thing with the change is running the pilot program. It should be a small scope program. Sometimes it's just enough to involve 3 roles that I have mentioned, you as marketing person, your subject matter expert, and sales, right? And it could be a very light version of ABM, but you do, with this program, you develop the prototype of your program. You need to create proof of concept, and you try multiple things without involving all other resources. You don't need to officially, announce it as an ABM program. It would be just as an experiment at this moment, but you need to prove that it works. And to make sure that it works, you need to identify areas where you are likely to have success, right? So it's always good to see in what verticals you have success, what verticals you're growing the revenue, or quite often we look at the same data from the use case perspective, right? Because if you have multiple use cases that belong to multiple verticals, it's much better to focus, let's say, on your flagship use case and create a program around this. Next, define key improvement areas, right? As we spoke, when you identify what you want to improve, we want to improve reply rates, we want to improve personalization. We feel we never did appropriate personalization. We want to improve the quality of our content. Our content, let's say, is just product oriented or like heavily vendor oriented, and we want to make educational content to create awareness among our target accounts, right? So you build these requirements for your program. Next, reasoning. That's really important. I have already highlighted this. Without reasoning, your program is likely not to be approved, right? And the sales leader, because anyhow, you would say, okay, I'm going to run this experiment with this SDR or account executive, right? Still, you need to get the approval. And without giving the reasoning, it's likely not to happen. And last thing that you'll see, it's the last question that you'll hear, okay, but how we'll know that we actually improved it? So you need to define good measurements here, right? So how do we know that the improvement actually happened? That's the key. Next.
Yeah, I mean, as we think through, someone asked a question earlier, like, how do you know when to strike the balance from enablement back to brand building? And we've got a list of examples. I'm going to go ahead and just jump to the top recommendations that I would make, because I think everyone has this data in their CRM. So one would be website engagement. So if you've already cookied people and you've got a basic integration set up between your website traffic and your CRM, you can actually see who's already on your website. So that are already on your website looking at high intent pages, surfacing that to sales typically results in a higher level of conversion. Additionally, looking at champion tracking. So the idea of champion tracking comes from the idea that you have customers that have moved from one job to another. You can actually see this through some relatively duct taped ways, but an easy way to do it is if you're sending out a weekly or monthly newsletter to your customers, you looked at the bounced email addresses, and then you compare bounced email addresses up against LinkedIn changes. Regardless of whether or not you use that for outbound, to surface that for your customer success team is also massively beneficial, so they can even see main points of contact that may have made a move. Additionally, event activation. I am shocked by the number of organizations that don't do some form of a pre-event outreach. I try to get 50 to 60% of my anticipated meetings before I even take off on a flight. That way I know that my events will always be ROI positive, and that still leaves room for serendipity. And the next thing is just missed meetings, like re-engaging with marketing programs, missed meetings. These people showed specific intent and opportunities, and they didn't show up for some reason. How do we re-engage that audience in that account in and of itself? I'm not going to go through all of the opportunity bucket, but in short, deal stages can function as triggers for marketing programs. And the example I always like to give is I've had 300 sales conversations in the past 18 months. I have spoken to 3 CFOs, but in every single one of my sales conversations, the CFO or the board is involved. I just don't get access to them as a seller, but I do get access as a marketer. For some reason, the camera has decided to quit working on me. So we'll keep rolling with it. But in short, that is opportunities. And then lastly would just be customers. What I have found is that more often than not, my target accounts are friends with my target accounts. So if I can engage specifically people that are already customers and get them to make introductions to my target accounts, that typically is a win for me. And that is not crazy difficult to actually identify. You just go through their LinkedIn connections. And then as a result, you can more easily find people that you actually want to speak with. So there's my camera back. All right. Continuing to roll with it. Goodness gracious alive. Gotta love technology. Here's how I think through specifically structuring these programs. So for starters, it's data. So data is just simply who we're going to plus why we're reaching out. Then it's distribution, which is how to get in front of them. Then it's destination, which is what are we sending them to. And then lastly is direction. I have a lot more content on this. But first, as a time, here's a TLDR version of it that I think makes it really easy to understand. If you want more, we've got some templates. Feel free to shoot me a DM. And the last thing is when you marry the activation playbook, I think of those as the tactics. And then many of you have already asked, like, okay, where's the appropriate balance and blend here? I think of a lot of these activation playbooks at that sales enablement stage as way later stage of like re-engagement, MQA, SQA. So if you build a lot of programming there for good fit customers that if you use Andre's templates, or we've got some of our own on how to identify good customers, if you can go ahead and convert those good customers into pipeline today, you can then go build brand programs that connect into those same playbooks. So essentially, if you think about it as an account progression, build your conversion programming, and then go build awareness programs that drive more people into conversion programs. That is the high level. There is a ton of stuff that we could talk through on this, but I want to go ahead and pass it back to Andre.
Yeah, absolutely. Just want to make sure that we finish it on time and cover a couple of questions. First of all, when you finish this strategic preparation that Mason shared, there should be two things in place. First, again, I would love to remind what Mason has already said. You need to co-create it with sales and make it visual, so they at least see the key stages. Maybe, I mean, if you are a real nerd, you can dive deep and create super complex infographics, but sometimes it's just enough to keep it simple, right? And create the kind of the core stages and highlight and what would be the role of marketing, or what would be, let's say, marketing-owned activities and what would be sales-owned activities, right? And the most important thing, like I said, in most cases, this change and this pilot won't come as a substitution to your current duties and responsibilities and programs that you are running. Hence, you need to build on this. You need to incorporate your existing marketing mix, right? You're going to run the webinar, think how to make it account-based. Think how to bring the target accounts that you have selected together with sales to this webinar, and what would be the post-webinar, what should be the pre-webinar engagement, what should be the post-webinar engagement, just to keep it simple, right? Don't try to create a completely separate siloed program. You already have silos in your organization. Don't make it even more silos, if you will. So that's the first thing. And the second one, when you co-create this program, explain and agree on sales and responsibilities in a future pilot. Just make sure that they clearly understand what they are supposed to do, and in ideal scenario, run a prototype of these activities. If they are supposed to invite target accounts to the webinar, what would be the script? What would be the channels used? For example, email or LinkedIn, or how that should be personalized. If you want, I mean, obviously, I'm not going to send standard emails, right? How you're going to personalize? What data do you need for this? Whom you're going to reach out to? So make sure that you all are aligned on these responsibilities and activities without any, so just to avoid any surprises in future, right? Keep in mind, the goal, I always share this quote. It was once shared by VP of Marketing of one of our clients. She said, the goal of the pilot ABM program is an evolution, not a revolution in terms of change for your team. That's the key. Next, you need to craft a framework, right? And basically, if I mentioned a couple of times, and with Mason was shared that there should be activation in place, there should be awareness, etc. I would love just highlight 6 essential pillars. We call it 6A framework. So 6 essential pillars you need to include in your playbook. The first one would be the account selection. You don't, as we spoke, don't apply opportunistic or wish list building approach, right? Define in best case scenario, analyze your best deals. Again, Mason just shared this, so I don't want to dive deeper. Analyze your best deals and define the patterns of these accounts. What make them a good fit, right? What qualification criteria can you identify from these deals? And what would be the disqualification criteria? The key is just to make it tangible, avoid any ambiguity, so anybody in your organization could apply this criteria and tell, is it a qualified or not qualified account without gut feeling? That's important, right? This should be tangible. Next, account segmentation. Obviously, all of the accounts that you're going to select would be on different stages of their buyer journey, right? Some accounts might be in market, but they have no idea who you are and what you do, right? And they might completely ignore you. If that would be just only outreach, they might completely ignore it, right? Some accounts might fit your qualification criteria, right? And maybe somebody from the buying committee engaged with you, but you have actually no idea what are their ongoing needs, what are their challenges, right? And if they're in the market or no. So from this perspective, you always need to categorize your or segment your accounts, and we prefer to segment them into 3 buckets. Basically, cluster ICP, the cold accounts that fit your qualification criteria, but they don't know you and you have no idea what are their needs. Future pipeline are the accounts that engaged with you. Again, Mason shared a great slide on how to identify this, but you don't know if they're in the market and what are their needs, right? Hence, here you invest into buying committee mapping, buying committee engagement, and account research and active focus. These accounts know you. You know them, you have some relationship with the buying committee members, and you have enough product need evidence. You have enough insights that tell you that this account has a need in your product, and you work on fully personalized programs to sell, or basically to create a sales opportunity with this account. Next, account research. Obviously, it shouldn't be just, a lot of companies think nowadays that account research is just, pulling the website URL of this account into ChatGPT and ask to run in-depth research. If that's it that you collect, then you'll be running the same messaging and the same outbound, let's say, emails as your competitors, right? And the ads would be the same. So in-depth research is happening on several layers. First of all, account research, and then you can collect the publicly available information, and then the buying committee research, which means who are the people who might be involved in the deal, what would be their role, what are their current KPIs, what their goals, challenges, needs, etc. You map it out to the organizational level, to the strategic initiatives of this account. And what would be really important here, aside from the standard information that you can get from multiple sources, and today with AI you can get it in seconds, like team size or money raised, whatever, right? Open positions. Today it's more or less a commodity information, to be honest. Everybody can access it. What is more essential is to sit down together with sales and identify what are the critical questions or what are the critical pieces of information that we must know about this account to be able to create fully personalized offer. And in most cases, these insights you will be able to gain only via direct engagement with these people, only when you hear from them, right? So that would be the most essential insights for your account research. Next, account awareness. How are you going to create awareness in these accounts? What are you going to do? Pro tip, display ads or programmatic ads and email outbound are not awareness channels, right? You need to define what will help to actually create engagement with the buying committee members, what will educate them, what will nurture them, what will challenge their status quo, right? Next, account development. How are you going to create sales opportunities with these accounts? How are you going to warm up the buying committee? How are you going to start the conversations with them? How are you going to collect these insights, right, that are essential for you to create fully personalized offers? And lastly, account activation. Again, Mason already shared this. So how are you going to create fully personalized, let's say, offers, solutions, proposals, business cases, whatever you'll call it, to create sales opportunity with these accounts, right? That's the key. The most important part, you won't be able to do it alone. You need to create a cross-functional ABM team. Again, in a nutshell, you need to define how much time. What my recommendation here is, don't try to pretend that you'll have more time in future. That will never happen. Look at your current capacity, identify what is realistic, how much time you all will be able to dedicate to this pilot, because quite often we hear a question, how many accounts can we engage in ABM? But when I ask how much time can you dedicate to it, right, then you see immediate mismatch. So identify what is realistic to be spent on this program, right? And then what would be the key activities? That's the key. And then make sure that everybody accepts these responsibilities. That would be the key to prepare your pilot program. And one thing, again, just to highlight this, Mason already shared the problem with the KPIs. The key is that when you're going to present this program, fully designed program with the responsibilities, right, with the timeline, with the key activities that you are going to run, make sure that there are right expectations and that you're going to measure the right KPIs. As we spoke, different accounts would be sitting in different segments, right, based on the probability of creating opportunities with them. And you need to apply right KPIs to measure the progress with these accounts. If these are completely cold accounts, right, who have no idea who you are, don't expect sales opportunities coming in. If your sales cycle lengths, let's say 12 months, don't think that in the next quarter, magically ABM will generate full pipeline with these accounts. Make sure that you define the right indicators. Again, that's the goal, to define these indicators. First would be sitting with your, let's say, alias, with your pilot team, and discussing these KPIs with them, and then presenting to the leadership. And let's move to the last part.
Yeah, I know we've got maybe 37 seconds. So in short, when we talk about money, I always put this in quotes, because ABM is a marketing program that aims to align people on the vision and the objectives of the business. And then when people build out a sales comp plan, we aim to incentivize sellers to take actions that align with the vision and objectives of the business. That said, many marketing programs and sales comp plans don't align. And forgive me, for whatever reason, my camera just doesn't want to work at this point. So I'll make this really short and simple and sweet. If you have a comp plan that's aligned with business objectives and a marketing plan that's aligned with business objectives, but sales isn't incentivized to close opportunities that marketing is delivering, either marketing or sales or both aren't aligned on business objectives. So here are the 3 questions to ask. 1, do you know how your sellers make their commissions? It doesn't have to be exactly the dollar amount, but are they bonus based on a number of deals? Are they bonus based on the percentage of the deal? Are they bonused differently depending on different kinds of organizations? You just need to understand that. To the best of your ability, if you can do the math with them or develop a template for them that they can then plug in some specific numbers based on that, can you actually show them how much more money they would make? And then the last thing is, to the best of your ability, if you can get exact numbers, does the math actually work out? Because if the math doesn't work, why would you expect them to work with you? This is relatively simple. It's supposed to be a gift and didn't pan out, but just show me the money. Like, it's really easy to get sales bought in when you can show them the money. So if you've built sales activation playbooks that build the pipeline, and you've built targeted programs that further drive right accounts into your sales activation playbooks, but you still can't get aligned with sales, it's likely a problem that can only be solved by your executive team by shifting how they compensate sales. So at a certain point, if you've exhausted everything that you personally can do, there is a point where it is actually not your fault. But I don't want to start there. I want to start with all this other stuff. Andre, where can people learn more?
Yeah, so just the last section, because probably you guys all will have questions where we can dive deeper into the stuff. First of all, we also spoke with Vlad. We see this like in the first half of 2025, we see the continuous requests with that mention the same challenges. Outbound pipeline keeps declining, inbound leads are unpredictable, sales complaining about low revenue potential, marketing leads are difficult to turn into pipeline and win, the problem with the alignment, etc. So if you're at this stage where you want to initiate the change management and you believe that you can, let's say, find alias inside your organization, but you need to create the approach how to do this, with Vlad, we spoke to provide a free strategy sessions to these teams. So if that sounds interesting for you, feel free to DM me on LinkedIn or just reply to one of the emails with the webinar reminder. So we are going to help you with mapping out the, let's say, change management plan and highlight on the steps for you and what data you might need to obtain and how to present it to your leadership so you'll be able to run the ABM program. And then just a couple of things. We have our full funnel ABM on demand course where we are diving deep into all of the points that we were discussing today. So this is the QR code if you'd like to learn more, or if you kind of prefer free content, that's also fine. Feel free to subscribe to our weekly newsletter on Substack. And let's cover a couple of questions that we have. I see you already answered them in the chat.
Do my best.
This one, this one from Amanda.
For Amanda, if you're still here, the long and short that I would recommend is you're not going to you're not going to typically day one upon launching a playbook see an immediate pipeline. We have had a couple of clients where that was the case. Like they launched a playbook towards close lost, and like one email was sent, and then they got like 4 meetings. Like that does happen. But what I find is once you've gotten 4, 5, 6 playbooks, this is intentionally a 6-month intensive. Once that's fully built out, like if you have a repeatable playbook for close lost, event activation, website re-engagement, referral programs, customer upsells, pipeline acceleration, those are all repeatable playbooks. If you have those things running, then you should be able to make that transition over back towards specifically sales, or sorry, brand building, because those things will continually run towards good fit accounts. So that's my recommendation, is just get the playbooks running, and then over time they'll be able to be continuously optimized.
Awesome. I see we have covered pretty much everything. How did you like the webinar, guys? Let us know in the chat. So feedback from Daniel. Thank you. Amazing content. Thank you. Love the answer. Thank you so much. Cool. Appreciate a lot your feedback, guys. And just to let you know, we're going to make a summer pause. We're actually scheduled how many more webinars? 3 more webinars with you, right? So we're going to host 3 more webinars with Mason on different topics related to ABM. The next one would be somewhere closer to the beginning of September, if I'm correct, then a new one closer to the Christmas Eve, and one in Q1 of 2026. So stay tuned. There would be lots of things to cover, and in August we're actually going to break the summer pause with the new webinar. Appreciate your feedback, guys, and Mason, thanks a lot for co-creating this with me and for co-hosting it today. I think it was an amazing experience.
Yeah, thank you, Andres, so much for having us, and we're looking forward to doing the next one.
Thank you all. Have a great summer ahead, and stay tuned with the future updates. Cheers. Take care, everyone.